3, 4. Yeah, you know how to count. Fifth one.
Yeah.
I've been educated. The nuns were good.
All right, we are just about live, and we are live. Hina, over to you. We are broadcasting, and we are good to go.
Good evening, BNI Gurgaon and Faridabad, and a very warm welcome to the BNI fraternity and everyone from around the world who has joined us here today. Thank you all for being here with us this evening.
BNI Gurgaon is a networking crew, entrepreneurs meeting over the morning brew. 7:29 a.m. is the official line before which you have to sign. You meet the members to ascertain the business they would like to gain. Once you understand their business gist, you look through your contact list. To make a connect, not a cold call, it's a personal voucher referral. The members then make the pitch without any mental hitch, because they've been told they're expecting your call to make business happen to close the referral. Before the business is completed, the process is again repeated to help someone else grow. The business flows to and fro. Every week brings a different energy. With visitors, you can build a synergy. In the middle, you improve your skill through the trainings that aim to kill the glitches and hitches you collect to improve your mind and intellect. You gain over time, it's not a quick scheme. You need to work as a team. Challenges are a part of the game, but we never deviate from our aim. In the lockdown, the world was rocked. We migrated online and business was clocked. Not one business person on the fast lane, but a group believing in givers gain.
We are super excited to present to you the last in our series of the Key to Success webinars, Innovation and the Hunt for New Opportunities. This is brought to you by BNI Gurgaon in association with XLRI Jamshedpur and is a fitting finale to this series. It is also my pleasure to introduce to you our source of inspiration, someone who ensures that we get out of our comfort zones, pushes us to push our own boundaries and to achieve our stretch goals. Incidentally, this series is also his idea. This is no other than our very own Rakesh Kochar. Rakesh is the Executive Director of BNI Gurgaon and the Regional Director of BNI Faridabad. But he aspires to be remembered as someone who made over 2,000 entrepreneurs dream and realize their possibilities. He has helped his 1,200 members across 24 chapters comprising of entrepreneurs, business owners, and professionals achieve unprecedented success through sharpening their networking and referral skills. Rakesh's main responsibility is to make BNI not only a great place to get business, but a great place to do business. Rakesh leverages his corporate experience of 20 years, learnings from PGDBM from XLRI, and his chartered accountancy to create opportunities for massive member engagement through the philosophy of givers gain. In his words, he is here to support you on your journey to success. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Rakesh Kochar.
Thank you, Hina. Absolutely great evening ahead for all of us. So excited to be partnering with XLRI. And we have one of the top professors, a young man, Professor Rajiv Roy, who's going to take us through this journey of innovation and entrepreneurship. But before that, let me introduce you to the lady who just introduced me. Hina Handa. She is the founding partner and creative head of a company called EDC Design Consulting Firm. She's covered by BBC, Connect Times, a lot of publications. But what really gets me is that she is a member of BNI Gurgaon for the last 8 years and supported this region for 1,200 entrepreneurs. Her credo is, you create your future with the power of your intention. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Hina Handa. And let's dive right into what we are here for today. This is the last in the series of various partnerships we have had with XLRI. It all started with the first one, which was on finance, which was done by Professor Santosh Sangam, and it was called Managing Business Finances in the Current Environment. Then we quickly moved into other topics, like it was Professor Manish Shingal was talking on organizational behavior, and Professor Sanjeev Vaishnav was talking about marketing in these challenging perspectives. And Professor Rahul Shukla talked about the art of persuasive communication in a crisis. But today, It's going to be about innovation and how you interpret innovation, how entrepreneurship is linked with innovation, and what innovation is all about. Have we reached peak innovation? Is there anything left to innovate, or this is just a marketing gimmick? Let's try and figure things out. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce today's chief anchor and professor who's going to walk us through this, Professor Rajiv Roy. He's a doctor from IIM Ahmedabad, and he really likes to be called an entrepreneur's educator, a startup mentor, an entrepreneur, and an investor. He's the professor of entrepreneurship at XLRI and the CEO of Exceed, the campus incubator. But what really excites me is that he does an online course on entrepreneurship, which is anchored by him and used by over 300 universities and colleges worldwide. He has trained over 1,000 entrepreneurs and over 300 entrepreneurship educators. He has been directly involved in mentoring and advising over 100 startups in their growth phase. And what gives him the street cred? The street cred he gets by, he has directly been an entrepreneur himself. And he started his own ventures. His entrepreneur ventures included food processing, KPO, dairy products, and microfinance. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Professor Dr. Rajiv Roy. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you, Rakesh. Thank you, Hina. This was introduction, which was a little, I think, an oversell, but thank you very much nonetheless. Very happy to be here, and very happy to be here for one more reason is I've always been a person who has avoided the big cities in the world. The only exception I've made in my life is I spent 5 wonderful years in Gurgaon, which was from 2000 to 2005. And as I keep on telling everybody, when I left Gurgaon in 2005, I went with the opinion that the city has grown so much, you can't even put up another building over there. But I think what had happened at that time was hardly anything compared to what I see when I make my occasional visits over there. So we talk about innovation today, and we talk about how innovation is related to enterprise and what all you're doing. I'll share my screen. I'll share a presentation I have put up. That's just a cue. That's a cue of what the conversation we intend to have, just to make sure that I don't talk a lot of nonsense and I stay to the topic. That's why we have a set of slides. But this is a conversation. If you have any questions, just keep them on hold, and we'll certainly address them at the end of the session. Okay, going with my screen. Okay, to start off with, you know, I'm not going to ask you what is innovation. I'm going to probably just go out there and tell you what I mean by innovation. Innovation will have about 5 different definitions on the first page of Google if you search for what exactly it is. For the purposes of what we are doing right now, we will talk about innovation being something new that you are able to implement. The important thing over here is that there is something new and different, and it is something that you are going to implement. Just thinking up something is not innovation. As many people say, the value of an idea, no matter how good, is approximately 37 rupees 50 paise. Everything else comes from the implementation that you do of that particular idea. Also, there is this entire thought of innovation has to be something, there is sort of a threshold that it has to be a minimum this much new. It has to be something new to the world. Nobody should have seen it earlier. But that is not exactly what innovation is all about. As long as it is new to the scope of what you're doing, new to your organization, new to your market, that is innovation. New to your life, that is innovation. If something is doing well in Norway and you decide to copy it and do it here at Gurgaon, a purist might say that it is just cut and paste. But for me, you're trying out something which has not been tried out in a certain society, in a certain market, and that's innovation. So we'll go with this, you can say, working definition of what innovation is. And Manish, I'll request you to put up a poll. We have a small poll over here. If you can just put it up, it just gives an idea of where you are in terms of your enterprise and in terms of where exactly you are in terms of how important you think innovation is or how required it is in your organization. So just a short poll, and we'll go ahead with the rest of our conversation.
So just go in and answer how many people work in your enterprise. What is your annual revenue? Promise you we won't share this with anybody beyond this room. How old is your enterprise? What is the status of innovation at your enterprise? That's pretty simple, 4 questions. And we're getting a lot of votes in already, I can see that. So most are, 50% of the respondents are saying 0 to 5, and about 30% are saying 20 to 100, about 5% are saying 100 plus. What's the annual revenue? About 45% are saying up to 1 crore, 40% between 1 to 10 crores, and about 4% over 100 crores. How old is your enterprise? Most of them are, about 56% are saying over 7 years old. 1 to 3, about 25%, and the remaining is that. What is the status of innovation on your enterprise? This is something which piqued my interest. Here, people, you're getting a bunch of answers, which says very little, but we wish we do more. We do a lot and want to do more. Okay, that's good. That's 38% of the people, and we do a lot and don't want to do more. That's 3% of the people. So there's a whole bunch of responses out there. We've got in about 74% of the polls. I think we should give it 30 more seconds. What do you say?
So maybe another 10 seconds and we'll close it.
Yeah. So let's count that down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's close that.
Okay.
Want to share the results?
Oh, yes. Okay, so just looking at the answers that we have over here. So the majority is enterprises over here are within 5 people in terms of the number of people working in the enterprise. I think we are going to have the median is probably 5. The way I look at it, it's 5 or 6 probably is the median over here. And then if you're looking at the average revenue, we have almost, in fact, we have exactly 80% who are within 10 crores, evenly split between those who are up to 1 crore and those who are between 1 crore and 10. So yes, so it's just to get an idea of what size of enterprise you are, what age of enterprise you are. So I'll be accordingly able to properly talk about the things that I intend to talk about. The large majority of the organizations over here are more than 7 years old. I think there's only one person with an enterprise which is less than a year old, and most of you have been around for a while in terms of your enterprise. Again, the median that we are looking at is close to, I assume it's around 6 years or so. That's what we are looking at. Status of innovation at your enterprise. Glad to know that most of you believe that there needs to be a lot of the crowd split between those who think they're doing a lot and those who think that they're not doing enough. But I think it's a good beginning. Thank you, Manish. I think we can stop sharing the results now. Now let me get into some of the realities of what we are facing over here in terms of innovation and why exactly it is important. So one of the questions that usually comes up is, why do you need to innovate? What is the basic need? What is the, as a business, I'm not talking about individual. Individual, there are a lot of reasons why we need to innovate. But if we're talking about a business, there's a cost to innovation. There is an uncertainty around innovation. So, but why? If I just ask if there are any thoughts around it, which you would want to share, any of you here?
I guess one of the key reasons an entrepreneur would want to innovate is to ward off competition, right? So if I have a product before somebody else has, then I have the space to lead off much faster. And by the time somebody catches up with me, I have a uniqueness of a service offering. And that gives me space to, at least create better pricing for my product, attract better consumers to my offerings, and gives me room till others catch up. And by the time I move to the next one.
Absolutely. I think I'll give you 2 examples over here of things that actually ended up happening and why you need speed. And I'll go to the extent of saying that it's not just that you want to do well and that is why you need to innovate. Sometimes it is sheer survival. For survival itself, you need to innovate. Otherwise, things can go really wrong for you. Let's look at an organization like Nokia. I mean, all of us are familiar with it. Every one of us over here probably held a Nokia in our hands at some point of time. And we really didn't think there would be a cell phone market in the world where Nokia is not even talked of when we talk about the top 10 firms right now. And this is a firm which innovated a lot. They started from lumber, they started from nails, they got into a variety of other things. The telecom revolution in Lapland was just happening around the corner. They got into the game very early. They were able to make use of a lot of innovation in the ecosystem, and they went ahead with it. But when they failed to move with the market, when they failed to implement things which were happening out there, then obviously they went away. And it can happen again and again. All of us know that the largest selling cell phone in the Indian markets just about 3 years back, exactly 3 years back, was Micromax. And right now, I don't see them selling even a single piece. So it is something which is going to repeat itself. There are people who get comfortable with what they're doing, and they don't want to take the risk of doing something new and different. Even when the new and different seems to be very important and has the potential to take over the market, they don't make a bet. They don't place a bet over there. And the biggest example worldwide anybody can think of is probably that of Kodak. They developed almost all the technologies around the digital camera. It was developed in their labs, and they decided that this was something just too risky to put out in the market because it would be hitting the main revenues. Now it is a company which is trying to sell a single app. That is what they have been reduced to. So if you're not going to innovate, it is going to hit your bottom line. It is going to hit your ability to survive. Whether you're small or whether you're big, you need to innovate. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem. Now, the important thing over here is exactly who innovates. And there was a time where innovation was something which was given to, let us say, an R&D department. You have two guys who are doing different things, and you want to isolate that from the rest of the company. You really don't want that happening all that much to impact your regular day-to-day work. And if you're a small enterprise, you outsource the innovation. You ask somebody to come here and come up with crazy ideas and go away. The world's leading design firm, IDEO, in fact, worked on that premise for a long time. So what happens is companies used to invite them, come up with new products, new ways to work. So then it changed. Then it changed to the extent of companies saying that we love the fact that you come in and do great things to us. Why don't you teach us how to do these great things? We want to do them on a daily basis. So companies from Procter & Gamble, from Unilever to Samsung, all of them invited over IDEO to come and implement the changes which makes them a little more innovative. And I'll talk about some of those changes which are pretty much low-hanging fruit, which almost any of us can end up implementing. But the idea over here is that innovation now is something which is very much a core business function. Irrespective of the kind of sector you are in, you might be into mining for all I care, but you need innovation over there. In fact, I'll talk about a firm which is into mining and doing a lot around innovation right now. Let me just show you some interesting new products which have come up. This is called the mirror. So this is a little more than just a mirror on the wall. What it does is it acts as a guide for you to do your fitness regimen, your exercise, whether you're doing Pilates, you're doing yoga, or you're doing a workout. What happens over here is they give you feedback on how good your form is, how many reps have you done, how many sets have you completed. So that is information that is fed in. And then it depends heavily on artificial intelligence to work on that information and customize it to the manner in which you're doing things. So for example, if you are about 60 kgs and you are, let's say 5 feet 10 inches, it is going to understand and acknowledge the fact. And if you're somebody like me, about 100 kgs, then that is also going to acknowledge the fact and make a different set of, you can say, have a different set of parameters for this other person. So this is what it does. And this has been one of the products which has taken the world by storm over the last few months. This was launched at a price of $3,000. And it was initially successful in the market. And what happened is it was actually taken over by one big company, Lululemon, those who have popularized the yoga pants the world over. They recently bought this company for around $500–600 million, and I forget the exact figure. There's another innovation I want to show you in terms of products. Here we are talking about product innovations, and Thor ET One is probably the best looking of the ones that I'm going to show you over here. This is a truck. This is again a truck which, this is the Tesla equivalent for large haul trucks. It has got a range of around 450 kilometers. It ends up taking about 40 tons as a payload. And it does cost a little bit more than you would end up paying for a truck of its size. The cost is about $150,000, and probably if you buy an equivalent truck from one of the older manufacturers and get the body done over there, it'll cost you a little over $100,000, or maybe even a little under that if you are at this stage. So it's expensive, but good-looking product. Actually, it looks like one of those Terminators, doesn't it? So, what do you think is the product here? What is it that is being shown to you as a product over here? Icon, Vulcan. Icon is the name of the company, and Vulcan is the product, let us say, or maybe we can call it. So, what do you think it is over here? Any ideas?
I think the prefabricated whole structure, I think, is that what they're talking about?
Yes, Manish. So what this is actually, it is not exactly prefabricated. This is a 3D printed house. So Vulcan is the 3D printer that works on waste plastic and concrete composites. And it makes this house in a period of 72 hours. Of course, the windows and everything are fitted while the construction is going on, or right after that. The roof is made separately and stuck on over here, but they have a version where you can actually 3D print the roof also. But the rest of the structure you see, including the porch which is running all around it, is 3D printed right at the location, and it is done all within 72 hours. This is a Texan company, but they're doing a lot of work in the Middle East right now, and it is less expensive and it is faster. And the Chinese believe that this is probably the way building technology is going to move. They are using 3D printers differently, and they're using it in conjunction with a lot of labor, and they have even gone for multi-stories over there. But Vulcan is probably one of the largest used 3D printers which are into construction right now. So this is again something new which is there in the market. And then I'd like to talk about Xbox Adaptive Controller. This is an attachment that is available along with the Xbox. You can actually buy it. And this is primarily for the differently abled. If you do not have full use of your hands, if you do not have full use of some of your faculties, you can actually use adaptive controllers which are already there in the market to integrate it with the Xbox. So this is nothing like it's just a box which allows you to connect other things along with it. Everybody has come up with, there are a lot of people who've come up with these aids that you can use. Suppose you have visual impairments, there are certain aids that you can use. You can connect those aids to the Xbox and play games just like a normal gamer. The cost of this is about $100, and it's been around for a while and been reasonably. Another popular product over here is, of course, quite visible. It is the 0% meat Impossible Whopper by, of course, it is by Burger King. And the thing that makes this veggie burger different, I mean, we have been looking at veggie burgers since '96. When McDonald's came into India, they came in with a variety of veggie burgers, aloo tikki mac burger, paneer burger, and all those things that happened since then. So what is different about this is something which is targeted at those people who end up taking meat normally. So this mimics the protein profile and the taste of meat, and been an extremely successful product. So I showed you 5 products, right? And there have been varying levels of success for these 5 that I've shown you. And I'll get into a discussion about why exactly what is successful, but I want your opinion on this one. Which one did you like? Manish, if you can just show us the next one. Tell me which one you liked of the 5 that I showed you right now. Okay.
A lot of people want to be truckers, I can see that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have got a relative who is into the trucking business in Bikaner, and he came over to the US to visit me when I was living over there. he didn't get impressed with the buildings I showed him in New York. He didn't get impressed with the restaurants I took him out to. Once we hit the highways and he saw the big trucks, that made his day. Then when he saw the dhabas, the diners over there, that was something that blew his mind. So, we are very clear about what we like in life. So we can end the polling here and we can just share the results. Okay, so the big favorite over here is Icon Vulcan, and next overwhelming favorite, by far the favorite over here was the Icon Vulcan. And then we have the Mirror coming in as the number 2, and we have votes then in order for the Thor and the Xbox and then the Impossible Hooper. So let me just share what exactly worked for them and what did not work for them. So, this is probably of the lot that I showed you in terms of the products. This is one of those which became an instant commercial hit. So there were some things which it had going for it. One is it was launched as a complementary product by a company which is already doing a lot in that area. So for Burger King, having another food product is a no-brainer. They can just put it in one of the 1,000 outlets that they have and it goes. The other thing is it capitalized on a trend that was already on, which is a move towards vegan and vegetarian food. And they were able to capitalize on it. So that was one thing. It was related to what they were doing and it capitalized on a trend. That was one thing which made it a more interesting product. And the likelihood of success was a little on the higher side. Now over here, the Xbox. The problem with this product is probably that it was catering to a very small segment. When you're talking about differentially abled, it's not exactly a market where everybody is going to end up participating. So you've cut down on the number of people that you can actually sell it to. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. There are a lot of small markets in the world which are extremely lucrative as long as you can protect the space. I know Rakesh over here plays golf, and that's a sport I occasionally dabble in also, and I'm sure there are a few others over here who engage in it. We have seen how Nike was trying to get into the sport. They took the help of Tiger Woods as a spokesperson, and then Adidas was also trying to get in, and they were trying shoes. Right? Nike dominates shoes the world over. But when it came to making sure that they get into this market, they could not make headway. And it was only about 7-8 years back that they just said, we can't do this anymore. Right? We really don't want a part of this market. They walked away. And Adidas, they actually ended up buying TaylorMade, which was a competitor to FootJoy. FootJoy continues to rule. There have been others who have been nipping at the heels, but FootJoy is the one which is completely ruling the roost and the small little market that they dominate. There's nobody else who gets in over here also. Many of you would have heard of a brand by the name of Stag, right? Not Royal Stag, I'm sure many of us have heard about it, but Stag is something which some of you would have heard about it. Yeah. So it is table tennis.
Stag as a deer I know of, but nothing more beyond that.
Okay, so if any of you have seen a table tennis anywhere in this nation, 50% of the TT boards in this country are Stag TT boards.
Of course.
So Stag is this brand which has carved a niche for itself. Again, one of those sports brands which are out of Meerut, but they have carved a niche for themselves in a single sport, which is table tennis, and they dominate that. And 50% of that turnover is actually from t-shirts and shorts that they end up selling. And if you go to the market, I'm sure you're not going to find it in a big bazaar, or you're not going to, of course, God knows what we're going to find in the big bazaar now, but you're not going to find it in a sports shop like Decathlon or in a big bazaar or anywhere else. What they do is they just take boxes of t-shirts and shorts and they dump it wherever there's a competition going on, which is around table tennis, and they sell through that. 50% of the turnover is clothing, is apparel, and that is how they sell it. So what happens is if you have a very small market and you're able to latch onto it, that's nothing better than that. Hohner is another brand which is doing it on a worldwide scale, Hohner. If there's a musician here, they would understand what I'm talking about. They have a 90% market share in mouth organs. All those harmonicas that you have, they have a 90% worldwide market share on that. So there are these very strong brands who have managed to come into a small little space and dominate it. Xbox with its adaptive controller wants to take over that small little market also. The Vulcan is the one which caught everybody's interest. Again, two things happening over here. There's a technological revolution around 3D printing. 3D printing is getting better and cheaper all the time. And this is probably one of the applications where it is going for. Do you know what is the application which 3D printing has completely taken over? More than half of the market is now dominated by 3D printed products.
Knee replacement, heart valves.
Not yet there. We're trying very hard as far as medical stuff is concerned. There are a lot of applications. Still now, there have been some regulatory issues which prevent a lot of these from happening. But yes, there has been a lot of progress over there. But the one market which 3D printing has completely dominated, and again, the market is also very much an Indian market for them, is jewelry. High-end jewelry is almost invariably 3D printed from a mold that they are using. So that is again a market that has that they have taken over, and this is probably the next market that they're going to take over. There's a lot of things happening in terms of 3D printing and construction, and these nascent plans we have of setting up a colony on the moon or colony in Mars, they all depend upon a 3D printer landing up over there and building a house for the astronauts before they land up over there. So that's how we are looking at the importance of what 3D printing is going to be doing going forward. Thor ET One was again a product which gained, which was some of you liked. So the problem with this product is, of course, the good thing about it is looks good. That's always a good thing about a product. Again, technologies, leveraging on that. Third is that it is again a trend, a social trend towards non-fossil fuels that they are leveraging on. But the reason it is not taking off at all is a very obvious problem. The infrastructure is still not around it. Because if tomorrow Tesla launches in India in a big way, they're going to have a lot of problem. In San Francisco, you can plug in every 5 kilometers, there's a place where you can plug in. Maybe even less than 5 kilometers, you'll have a place where you can plug in. But here in India, you'll have to go back home if you want to plug it back again. So similarly over here, it has a range of 450 kilometers, but what do you do after 450 kilometers? You have to find a dhaba where you can plug it in. And the dhaba needs to be one who has worked out a model where you can have an efficient plug-in point and then has a revenue model around it. Mirror, again, fitness and AI. Two big trends that they have caught on to. The problem was, it was a group of people who didn't understand fitness at all. They have sorted it out by selling their company to Lululemon. Now it's a group of people who understand the tech and who understand the trend also. So broadly, I wanted to tell you a little bit about what works and what doesn't work when it comes to product innovations, right? One of the biggest keys, one of the cornerstones of how I would like the world to probably look at innovation is the entire concept around design thinking. So design thinking is this new word which has been playing around everybody's mind for the last 10 years. I've been hearing a lot about design thinking and never actually heard about it much before that. Design thinking, not very complicated. I'll break it down. This is how the Hasso-Platter Institute at Stanford, the ones who originally came up with the term of design thinking, would like to talk about it. It is basically design applied to everyday life to come up with new solutions. 5 stages to it. It is cyclical, so you just go around in circles over here. It starts with empathizing. And I repeat, rest of it you can forget. What design thinking is all about is empathy. Your ability to put yourself in the shoes of a customer or whosoever you're thinking about, and to come up with a product based on what you think the other person is going to do. Or come up with a solution, I won't even say a product. So the idea is that you go in a 5-step. First, you try to understand what the situation is, what the problem is. You define it very well. You articulate the problem as well as what needs to be done about it. And then the ideate part of it comes up with a solution which you implement in something which is real, a prototype. And of course, then you go and test it in the market. If it works well, that is good. If it doesn't, go back to the first stage and start reworking on it. So broadly, this is what design thinking is all about. It's not a tool. It's much more than a tool. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of thinking in which an organization says that I want to go to my customer. I want to ask my customer what is important to them. And I want to keep on doing it on a regular basis so that I don't get caught out by things which are happening and passing me by. I will talk about very few low-hanging fruits implementable when it comes to innovation and what you can do in your organization. Extremely low-hanging fruits. This is something which can be very easily done. And let me start off with my small little list that I have over here. There's something called a 10% rule. This is a rule which applies to you and which applies to other people who are working for you. What it says is that 10% of the time I professionally spend in the company, I will spend it on things, thoughts, and actions which do not relate to my everyday activity in terms of what I'm doing right now. This is the free time I will have to think out what might be in the future, what might be interesting for the organization. Think wild, think new, think different. Give 10% of your time for that. It need not be every day you carve out 45 minutes for this activity. It might be that you carve out half a day every week for this activity. But whatever it is, you have to find some time where people innovate. This 10% rule applies not only to you as the leader of an organization, but also to those who are working with you. And this is not alone time. This can be in a group. This can be alone. It can be collaborative. And now in this era of decentralized workforces, it can be collaboratively on the net also. Next is you need to put an idea funnel in place. What an idea funnel is all about is that you collect a bunch of ideas and you run it through a process to find out whether it should be taken forward or not. You have these stages. Okay, is this idea good? There should be probably a group of well-meaning, well-intentioned, hard-nosed adults who say that, yes, this is what is good about it and we can take it forward. And the next level, there's some kind of minor testing or some kind of development you do, at the end of which, again, you take the same hard-nosed decision and see whether you want to take it forward to the next level. A couple of stage gates like this, and then you come up with a bunch of ideas which can actually be implemented in the organization. Have a new product policy. You need to have a new product coming out every now and then. If you are depending upon your old ones, you're going to be in trouble. And it may not be, again, a new to the world. It can be an addition to your line. It can be a change in what you're already doing. But new products are important. I mean, we grew up in an era where there were 3 options as far as cars are concerned, and the third option was difficult to find. Standard was really difficult to find. And right now, I think each of the manufacturers has more than about 7 options available in each showroom. And that is what has led to the explosion of the car. I mean, if we still had an option between Ambassador, Fiat, and Standard, I don't think we would have had the kind of car market which we see right now in terms of the auto market. Of course, there won't be so many auto manufacturers who will be crying right now also, but yeah, you get the idea of what I want to say. The fourth one is implement something which ensures that there is a customer connect. One of the companies I have grown to admire is Zara. It is brilliant. You have to visit, it's a business visit, to go to Deportivo La Coruña and to see what they have done in that city. They have taken over the civic infrastructure in a manner which has helped the entire city to participate in the growth of the business itself. And one of the things that they do extremely well is customer connect. So Zara does nothing other than copy designs from the, you can say, the ramps of Paris and Milan, and quickly implement them into products which can be sold, and then dashes it off to stores across the world and gets rid of the product before the month is out. There are a lot of other elements to it, but one of the main things they do is that they have a pulse of the customer in their hand. If you are somebody who is a salesman in the showroom, you have an app where you can put in qualitative information which reaches the very top of the management. They earlier used to use a PDA kind of a stuff, but now they are using an app and they're using smartphones. And this is information from the front lines reaching the top management and reaching the product development team in a hurry. And it is part of the responsibility of the salesperson to actually give feedback on what is selling, what is the kind of customer feedback. You need to find out what your customer is saying. You need to find out what they're liking and what they're not. That leads me to the next one, which is the 1% rule. It is actually a direct, you can say, fallout of having a customer connect. You cannot have the 1% rule unless you have some kind of customer connect that you're doing very well. And it won't necessarily mean that go and ask your salesperson to talk to the customer. There can be various other ways. You can have customer meets. I'm sure a lot of you do that on a regular basis. It is important that you're getting information about the customer. A variety of ways should be devised for this. So the 1% rule is interesting. What it says is, find out the single biggest problem that 1% of your customers have. And they have it to the extent that they want to kill you. They want to get up and kill you for the kind of inconvenience that you're making them go through. So change it around. Just look at the single biggest inconvenience that your customers are facing, as long as at least 1% of them is facing that. And then try to see if you can implement a change in your product which is not going to inconvenience your customers in any other major way. It will be acceptable not only to this 1% of the customers, but also to the other 99% of them. In case it is going to be a major inconvenience to the other 99%, you have to think about a product extension or different product. If it is not going to be a major inconvenience to your other 99% of your customers, then you can have it as an add-on in the product itself. So this is where you are going to get a lot of your good ideas from. Split testing, I would never recommend it for a startup which is just getting out. But as we saw over here, most of the enterprises that you are running, you've already been around for an average of 7 years, 6 years, and you already have a lot of customers on board. If you have a lot of customers on board, do what is known as split testing. It's otherwise also known as A/B testing. Find out an intelligent way in which you can carve out a small part of the market and try something new and different over there, and see which one is working better. A very simple way of looking at it is, if you have a certain website and you think that it is not doing well for your business, have a different website which is shown to specific groups of customers. It's always easy to look at geographical basis or some other intelligence you can build in, so that that website is being visible to only a certain number of people. And you see what's the response over there. Are you getting more signups? Are you getting more sales out of it? You can check it out if it is working or not. So anytime you are trying to implement something, and there should be a regular basis in which you are implementing it, you should be able to do some split testing to figure out whether it's working or not. I'll go back to the third one, which I mentioned over here, which is a new product policy. There's no point in having a policy unless you have budgeted for it. Go out there, make a mistake. Launch 10 products, even if 2 is successful, you're fine. Have ideas of what defines success when you're launching a new product or you're launching a new innovation. And over here, 3, I would like to modify a little bit. It is not just about, you can say, the product or the innovation that you have. It's a bunch of other things that you're also doing. Sumit, you have a question? With the background of Chingari, we'll ask you to. You can ask the question.
Professor, we can continue. We can have the questions a little bit in the end.
Okay, perfectly fine, perfectly fine. So let me tell you a few of the cases where I've actually seen these 6 laws being implemented and great things coming out of it. Globussoft is a small little software organization which was based out of a small city called Bhilai. Most people will have a problem in locating in the map. Those who remember the studies from class 8 would recall that it used to be India's largest steel plant at that time. Now I think it is Bokaro anyways. So now out of Bhilai, you had this small firm called Globussoft. It was into software services. It got into specialized software services, moved the offices to Bangalore. Now they are about 80 people strong, and they have turnovers about 25 to 30 crores, and they do enterprise SaaS products. And they also have products which help people around marketing of it. Now, Chingari is something which was developed by 2 employees of Globussoft. Globussoft implements the 10% rule very diligently. Go do whatever you want. Just let us know what you're doing at the end of the day. Even if it doesn't work out, we are fine. You go and you play football and you say that you are trying for a new product. That is also fine, but tell us that this is what you're doing. So Chingari was this idea which 2 employees had, and they launched the product. They continued being employees for a while. The owner, or let's say the chief promoter of Globalsoft, continued to have a stake in the new enterprise, which was Chingari. And as many of you know, once you had the problem around TikTok, Chingari took off like nobody's business. Chingari has approximately a few 100,000 downloads on a daily basis. They have a total downloads, which is well into millions right now. Just last week, they raised about 10 crore rupees in the first round of funding. And Sumit, the guy who was the original owner of Globalsoft, who promoted this entire thing, still retains a very healthy shareholding in the entire enterprise. He was telling me that he's turning down offers of investment right now because they don't know how much investment they can actually end up taking right now. So they're just saying no to a lot of investment right now. So another one which came up is Lenskart. Lenskart was again one of those enterprises which came up because there was an entrepreneur who wanted to be an entrepreneur and did not know how exactly he wanted to be an entrepreneur. So he was trying his hand at various other businesses. There was a fintech business that was primarily what he was doing. And here this intern was sitting over there and he said that he didn't know how to use this intern. So he said, hey, kaam karo. Let's implement an innovation program in the company. Each of you interns, then there were 5 or 6 of them, think about new businesses you think that can be started. So one of those interns started off an idea, which now is Lenskart. And the other businesses which the original promoter was after have been dumped now. They really don't, he doesn't care about what he was doing earlier. This is the main business that they're going ahead with. So just wanted to show you that the 6 principles that I'm talking about are not just theoretical principles, but these are things that people are implementing right now and actually being able to do a good job of moving ahead by implementing these. Manish, I'll just take your help in trying to, okay, just before that, let me just show you one more thing. As I was just telling, innovation is not just about new products. That is just a part of it. That is like the tip of the iceberg. That is what happens. There are many other parts of your enterprise which actually need innovation. And the same principles work there also. So what are these other things in your enterprise which probably can do with innovation? One is the marketing bit of it. What are the kind of channels that you're using? How are you exactly getting connected to the customer? Every day, there are new and new channels which are coming up. I was watching a video of some time back where, this was early days, 2008, 2009. YouTube had just come up and BMW, the spokesperson said that, this is not the kind of media that BMW would be interested in. And by 2013, they had an award-winning YouTube channel, which was considered to be the best YouTube channel among all commercial enterprises. Again, I remember one more thing is, this was early days, 1991, Star TV. The executive said that, yes, we know we have some customers in India, but we really don't think that there's going to be much of any traction in India at all. We'll get some customers, maybe 1 or 2 people advertising on it. Little did they know that Star TV is going to become all about India in just a few years. So do not discard any new channel which might be coming up. Try to innovate around your channels. There's a book called Traction. I think some of you would have read it. It's all about making sure that you have one great channel and you also keep on experimenting with other channels to figure out which one is working and which one is not. The product itself, there are 2 main areas around which the innovation is done. One is performance-based and the other is the cost-based. You can also innovate in terms of having different versions of it out there and how you want to bring it into a financial or a profit model. So the model, yes, there are a lot of innovations around the model that you can do. We have seen the last 10 years has been the time where platforms have taken over. So you have platforms, digital platforms, which are connecting one end of the market to the other, and they are doing extremely well. The better ones, the better known ones you already know. You know of the Amazons of the world and the Facebooks of the world, but they're also at a much smaller level. There are many others who are doing it. VSnapU is a photography platform, which works on the fact that they have photographers connected all across the country. And if you need any photography services, then you can get in touch with them. And you'll be surprised, almost 80% of their revenue comes from B2B. So for example, Zomato wants to take photos of all the shops that are connected to them. They give them an order. They are probably one of the few enterprises who's going to be able to hit all 100 cities that Zomato operates in on day 1 itself. So they have access to about 4,000 photographers, which are there on the site. So this is the power of platforms that we have. And there's similarly many other ways in which your business model can be redefined. Processes, just look at what else is happening, the kind of efficiencies you have right now around all processes. It's mind-blowing in terms of what is happening right now. People are replacing tally with Khata books. People are replacing tally with a mix of Khata books and Jin books. So this was something, again, which we wouldn't have imagined happening even 18 months back. But now it is happening at a pace which is completely unimaginable. So a lot of good things happening, and one has to keep one's ears and eyes open to see what can be adopted. And so that's, again, Manish, I'll just ask you to put up the next poll in terms of the products and the ideas that we have talked about and how we think it can be taken forward by our audience here.
Sorry, Professor.
Thanks.
Yeah, polls on that.
Okay. So there are two things over here I would like you to talk about. So of the 6 that we talked about in terms of the things which can be implemented, which do you think is the ones that you can implement? You can put in multiple ones over here. If there's one that you want to implement, you can. If there's more than one you want to implement also, you can. And the next one is, of course, where you think is the maximum benefit. Okay, we'll close the poll in another 10 seconds. Okay, so the one where most of you feel you can probably implement, the one you're most comfortable with, is the 10% rule. It makes a lot of sense to have the 10% rule. It is also a great way of empowering your workforce. I haven't seen anything else which makes them happier than having this 10%, because they believe that they are now also having a role to play in the strategic decision that the company is also taking. That's one of the major things that happens. Customer Connect, as I said, various ways of doing it. Go observe the customers, go have a beer with them. There are a lot of things you can do with the customers, and some way you need to be hearing the voice of your customer on a regular basis. Very happy to know that Idea Funnel is the one that comes in over here next. Idea Funnel, again, is a very easy to implement exercise. And if you're planning on having a slew of new products and you want to rationalize the process around it, Idea Funnel is the way to go. So next, I will look at what exactly is the maximum benefit. Where do you see? We are living in the era of business model integration, business model innovation. And I think that is also reflected over here in your views. The business model itself is probably the area where most of you see that there is going to be a huge amount of potential for innovation. I can think of 10 business models going on right now, which did not exist in the past. And right now, these are not universal. These are very, very restricted to certain parts of rather certain sectors. For example, freemium. We can't even think about freemium with physical products. That is like giving away free samples, and that's a completely different product. So, but there are possibilities. There are freemium models in the physical world also, and we can talk about it. But the idea is that there are a lot of new kind of business models which have evolved, and you just need to have a look at those to see exactly how things can be worked out. I keep on joking with a friend of mine. A Policy Bazaar was started by Yashish Dahiya, and who lives in Gurgaon, but doesn't like it as much, so spends half his time in Almora also. And he has this thought that the model that we are following is just one of those 5 models which is out there for us. We were lucky that we followed this. There were many others like default loans and all who actually have not gone that far, but they went far enough. They were able to make a lot of money with the model. It's just that, and again, I don't know why exactly they have got as much of funding as they have, but they can afford, Policy Bazaar as an organization can afford to take a lot of losses for a long time. So they were able to push the model a little harder than others were able to push the models. And that is why they've probably gone a little further than others have gone. But the idea over here is there are models, they're innovating, and there are new models coming up every day, and you should actually end up looking at what can be used for your enterprise. Okay, so we stop sharing the results. And we move on. Okay, 10 startups over here. Tell me, what is common to these? Don't tell me tech. Every startup is a tech startup nowadays. What is common to these?
Makes life really easy.
Makes life really easy. I thought Instagram is what made our life difficult.
Well, viewpoints.
So the only reason I'm on Instagram is to check out what my daughter is doing on Instagram. I have no other reason to be on Instagram. I don't even post over there. I have got about a few hundred followers, but I don't know why I'm there. The only reason is that I have to figure out what she's up to. So she was in your city till now, finished her graduation. So she's back in town in Raipur. I live in Raipur. So, but yeah. What do you think is common to all these startups? All of these have hit valuations which are very close to around $1 billion. So all of these are unicorns over here that you see. They were all started during the financial meltdown, which started in 2008 and continued till 2010. There was a crisis. And as the saying goes, when there's blood on the streets, that is the right time to make a killing, even if the blood is your own. So these are the ones which actually did that to a large extent. And if you look at some of these, Cloudera and Square, the two names over here, these were not out of nothing. They had a business model in place. They were doing things. They suddenly saw that there is an opportunity for us to get in. The world is collapsing around us. Let us change what we are doing and let us go ahead with this, all a full stream ahead, and they did this. So all the 8 over here that we see are those who managed to create a buzz, a market for themselves at a time when conventional thought was that the world was collapsing around them. I would like to introduce the concept, the term over here, which is called anti-fragile. Nassim Taleb has a book about it. So those of you who are more interested in this particular term can actually go through the entire book. It is a property of a system to increase in capacity and capability whenever there is a stress and a shock. So as small enterprises, as enterprises which probably have to go up against the Goliaths of the world on a daily basis, there is a desperate need for us to have anti-fragility built into the system. And what exactly is this anti-fragility? I'll try to explain to you in just a while. Basis of it is resilience. A resilient organization is one that is going to endure into the future, and it has the ability to endure the stress and the change that happens. And very important, what's here in bold is it needs to have the ability to thrive during uncertainty. It's very important to thrive. You know, we are Homo sapiens. We are the only living species in our genus. And the other species in our genus died out only about 15,000 years back. And they died out because whenever there was crisis, they went into a cave and tried to wait it out. We as Homo sapiens, whenever there was a crisis, we rushed, we went out to another continent. We tried to see what else is there in the market. We tried to go out and conquer over there. That's the reason we probably managed to survive this. we are looking at an extremely volatile, extremely uncertain, a very complex world, and that is not going to change. From whatever we have seen, the nature of complexity and the uncertainty is going to change, but the fact that it is a volatile and uncertain world is going to remain for a long time. A resilient organization senses change when it is happening. So probably in this context of what we are going through right now, those people who earlier figured it out that there is something wrong going on in China, let's try to figure out a way of dealing with it. So incidentally, I was supposed to be in Wuhan, and they turned down my application because I'm on a blacklist on Pakistan. That's a long and strange tale, but I got on blacklist by the Pakistani embassy, and that has affected my Chinese visa. So I don't know whether I'll again ever be able to visit China or not. But I have to figure out a way of actually getting around it. Once this is over, probably I'll end up doing it. Yeah, so and take action to minimize the downside risk and also extract the maximum upside that is to it. There is a HBS study which was done, which looked at 4,700 companies, two crises, the crisis following the internet crash in 2000 to 2002, and the crisis around the financial crash between 2008 to 2010. 40% of the companies failed to recover to the pre-crisis levels. 9% of the companies did better after the recession. 9%, big number. 85% of the companies which led growth in their sectors were toppled post the crisis. And what was it in terms of a strategy that worked? It was not defensive. 79% of the defensive companies failed to recover. 74% of the aggressive companies also failed to recover. So it's very clear. What actually works is a judicious mix of the two. Let's look at Sony. They cut their workforce by 11%, cut R&D by 12%, and cut their capital expenditure by 23%. This worked for them when it was the 2000 crisis. In the 2008 crisis, they decided to do the same thing. The cost reduction target was 2.6 billion. They closed factories all over. Very importantly, they closed some factories in Eastern Europe, which was going to be a very important part of the strategy going forward. They delayed investments all over, and 16,000 people across the globe working for Sony lost their jobs. What happened? Didn't work for them. Other side, HP became ultra aggressive. If you remember, the buyout of Compaq by HP was the single biggest buyout around that time. $200 million was spent on corporate branding, $1 billion on expansion into new markets, including markets in Asia. R&D expenditure was actually increased. And the end result of it is that they're still trying to recover from what they did in 2008. So what works over here is you need to have a judicious mix of the two and not just one. And for small organizations, there's this one term that I'll put out there, which is pivot. I think there is a time where we should realize that what we are doing right now, long term, is not going to work out for us. And we need to pivot in some ways. I'll show you 3 different kinds of pivots over here, and I'll be a little quick with it because we have time. So Nerdy Academy, again, is this small little enterprise. I met them when, there's a time when all our kids decide that they don't want to listen to one more word from their parents when it comes to acads. So that was the time when I said, okay, fine, let's get some other people into this. I'm not very comfortable with the normal way a teacher ends up teaching. And I wanted somebody who's a little younger doing this. So there was this kid out of the local NIT, and I asked him, why don't you do it? I heard that he does it. It was tuition. And he did it. And he and his girlfriend then set up this thing called Nerdy Academy. And in the 3rd year of engineering, they had a turnover of about 2 crores. And they were arranging for tutors, face-to-face, offline, all of it. Now it's a large enterprise, it's a reasonably large enterprise in terms of a stable one. And because of the COVID problems, there was no face-to-face tutoring happening. So a very natural, small little step they have done now is move into online tutoring. So this was almost a no-brainer in terms of the pivot that they have taken. There are many others who have gone into related offerings. It is related to what they do, but it is not exactly what they were doing before. Code Nicely was into setting up fundraising platforms for schools in the US. Once they found that the schools are probably not going to be looking at them or looking at fundraising at all this year, then they had to look at different markets. Now they're using the same skills to set up transaction websites for Indian corporates, and very much related to those who are trying to move the business online. Minocular was into mining. What they did was ERP for mining. So what they did was the Office suite for mining. It's where do you mine, how much do you mine, how much money are you making, all those answers, and controlling the machines also, a lot of IoT thrown into it. That is what Minocular was doing. Mines just shut shop. There was no mine which was operating, and so they could not actually go and sell it to anybody. And they had a model where they get money once the mine is using the product. So they were not able to do anything over here. Now they are into the business of setting up, the drones were a major part of their, so now they set up a drone data platform, which they are selling to the world now. So this is again adjacency that they got into. Completely new, there are a lot of people who have got into it. I don't think it's a great strategy to get into something new, so I'll not quote any example over here. But you know, there are a lot of people who were doing very nice, decent business things, and now they have started doing things like making COVID masks, they have started making sanitizers, good for short term, good for survival. If that is not your immediate concern, survival is not your very immediate concern, I think you can avoid that. There's a lot of energy which gets wasted on that. So broadly wanted to talk about pivots and how exactly you do it. And I'll come to a close around then. I think we have time for questions, and this is broadly what I wanted to talk about. I know there's 1.5 hours is probably not enough to talk about something as interesting as innovation. And I just thought I'll hit the major points, the main things that I would like to communicate about.
Hey, thanks, Professor Rajiv. Very, very interesting. So here's the thing, you know, one is the practical aspects of innovation. And you talked about companies which hesitate at the peak to innovate. And it's not that they don't know about these ideas. It's just that the risk of failure is so high at that point of time that they cannot, you know, stick to the knitting. So how do you place, and this is particularly stronger for the individual entrepreneur who is in the 5 to 10 crore bracket, as you can see, where the risk of failure is very high. How do you balance that imperative?
Yeah, I think it's a question of micro bets. That's what I always like to stress on. Suppose you're an enterprise and you are at a certain level. You should go with, there's this interesting lady who doesn't like me, but Saraswati is probably one of the biggest thinkers when it comes to entrepreneurs. And there's an amazing idea that she came up with, that how an entrepreneur and a small business ends up planning their enterprise is very different from how a large enterprise does. And it's not just a question of, you know, divide by 10 and that's how we think. It is not that. It's a completely different way of doing it. So how a large enterprise would plan is they make a plan for the future and they decide what are the resources they need to get to that plan they have made for the future. But in the case of a small enterprise, it's completely the other way around. What do we have with us? Do we have, how much money do we have? How much time do we have? How many resources do we have? And based on what we have, let us come up with a goal that makes sense for us. That is how we like to go about it. And very similar over here. So if you are a certain size, decide how much of a bet can you place. It's like going and betting on Dream 11, as we are going to do in another week or so, or those of us who go to Goa or fancier places like Monaco or Macau. You decide that aaj itna kharcha karna hai. I'm okay with losing this much of money tonight. So similarly, you have to make a call on your innovation. And if you're willing to spend, let us say $100 on your innovation, don't spend it at one go. Spend $10. The other $90 is going to come in when your first 3 bets, you figure out that these 2 are not working and there's the one that is working and you need to back that a little bit more. So spread it over time and decide how much you're going to spend on it. So it is money that you think of as an expenditure. It is like the tax that you're paying. You have this innovation tax which you pay yourself. That is how I think you should go ahead.
I really love this, the process of making small bets. And that kind of segues to where a lot of people watching today's interaction was suggesting they really love that 10% rule, right? Now, you have a bunch of employees going away and saying, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But there has to be a process which needs to back that up in terms of quickly sifting what's working, not working, and switching things off and putting more the spotlight on the things which are working. So what would be the process behind that 10% rule?
See, what works very well is there needs to be accountable. Even if it is a 10% time where you're going and doing whatever you want to do, there needs to be accountable over here. If there is, let's say we're talking about enterprises which are average of about 10 people is what we saw over here, a median of around a little less than that. So if it is 7 people, you meet once in a month, be it a second Saturday or some such time, and discuss what has happened in that 10% time. Somebody can say that I was trying to figure out how to cut down on my snoring and apply that learning to the rest of the world by sharing my results on that. But let them come and tell the other 6 people what exactly they were doing. Once you have this little bit of an idea that you are accountable for the time, then there's a better flow to it. And the bigger one over here is if you are sharing what you did with 10% of your time once a month, and there are 6 other people whose approval you seek and you want to be the top dog over there, you would like to come and say that you have done something significant. Out of this 10% time, they might be fibbing for 3-4% of the time, but over time you will see that at least 6% of the time they're doing something significant.
Absolutely. So here's the thing. Usually in an enterprise which is small, the leadership and all the decision making is pretty close to that 1 or 2 people, right? And so the capability is do you really require a lot of intense academic background or a type of education or a type of experience to innovate? What's your experience?
Not at all. I think there is a lot of innate horsepower we have been given by virtue of our DNA. You know, there was this guy who was, I was in Silicon Valley, and there was this guy who came up to me, and in a big conference, they were shouting at the fact that there are not enough opportunities being given to Blacks and Hispanics. And they showed a status where the whites are completely dominating Silicon Valley. Then I asked them to look at another column over there, which was to do with Asians. Asians make up about 5% of the population. And I'm talking about including those who are not citizens also. 5% of the population of the US is Asians. And Silicon Valley is 40% Asians. So what are we doing there? So that is because in some ways, the way that our DNA has structured itself, we are a little more comfortable typing out stuff and doing things which are a little more innovative than running away from a deer. And we know, every 4 years we discover how horrible we are in the Olympics. But here is where we are able to do well. So I think that innate intelligence that we have in terms of who we are will help us. We need a structure. We need a structure. As I told you, they're very small little things. We need a very simple structure. And once we have measuring things, we can just, I don't think, certainly we need something which is as complicated as a college degree, which by the way, I think that college degrees are on the way out anyways.
Great listening to you. Hina, you want to ask some questions which people are throwing at us?
So I want to ask one question myself. Now, in an organization, a small organization, you'll have a lot of people who have ideas. But usually those ideas will be kept to themselves, if at all, or the idea will come and it's gone. How do you encourage your team to hold on to those ideas? What's in it for them if they're giving you that idea?
Yeah, I think this is extremely important. And you know, the way we have implemented it is we have an idea book in our very phones. Every phone that we have, there's an idea book over here. And it is just the basics of an idea that we put down. Earlier, I used to actually have a small notebook I used to keep with me, and it used to be in my shorts because that is something which I used to have more often than, let's say, my formal clothes. So always I'll have some place where I can jot down my ideas. And it's early in the morning, keep it on your bedside table because that's the time when you get a lot of ideas also. Just when you're going off to sleep and just when you get up in the morning is the best time for ideas. and promote that habit in other people. That is step one. And what I did not talk about when I talked about the idea funnel is the start of an idea funnel is a place where you're actually able to collect all the ideas. So where you're collecting all the ideas as an enterprise can be a small little online program. And believe me, in the early days, you ask for people to put their name on the ideas, but also give a small little option for them to give anonymous ideas. Some ideas which they believe may not be received very well will come in as anonymous ideas, and they're going to be good for it. But you have to control the flow of that. You cannot keep it open, and there might be a lot of hate mail that ends up happening on the anonymous idea thing also. So you have to do a little bit of control on that, but at least have a space where they put in the ideas, and also be very clear that this is one of the parameters on which their performance is going to be rated. If somebody who's working for you knows that he's expected to come up with ideas, they have ideas. We come up with ideas on a daily basis. We just need to make sure that there is an expectation from us, and then we need to make sure that there's a payout for us also. If you're meeting these two, I think there'll be a flow of ideas all the time.
Thank you. That's a nice one. There's a question which has come from Ratish. He says, a quick question, what has been your experience with respect to innovation in MSME organizations, which are mostly centrally led?
Centrally led is intrinsically something we all do. And I would like to say that centrally led is not good for your BP, nor is it good for the organization. And maintain some of the information flows and maybe maintain the veto power all the way through. But there is no way you can probably lead, there's no easier way to go to an easier life and to better growth than just to loosen the strings when it comes to decision making. Allow people to make mistakes. Early days, there is going to be there. I mean, people are going to make mistakes, but as long as the framework is there, I keep on repeating this, it is not laissez-faire. It is, you need to have a framework over there where people understand that they are doing this on their own initiative. There is a risk to it. There's a possibility they might end up making a mistake over here. And there are repercussions. It's not that there are no repercussions, but let those repercussions be a little graded. You can't throw the book at somebody for something which is very small. So let it be a graded response. And it's going to do well if you're looking at any MSME, which allows an employee to become a manager and to some extent a decision maker.
Nice. There is, Sumant has asked, can you talk about the 1% rule a little bit, please? I think you rushed over that. So we... Okay,
yeah, this is a very interesting one. And what it says is, when you're collecting information, when you're collecting feedback from customers, you will find out that there's one particular problem that the customers are facing, which they're very irate about. It can be, let us say, in the case of geysers, it can be the fact that it is making a lot of noise. That was, Racold had this problem, which it makes a lot of noise, and it's scary, the kind of noise that it makes. There are two things. One is, you come up with a solution to it and see that whatever is the solution, is it inconveniencing the other 99% of the customers that you have? If it is inconveniencing the other 99% of the customers that you have to take a call on whether it makes sense to have it as a separate product. If it does not inconvenience the other 99% of the customers that you have, this 1% of the customers whom you are now satisfying to a major level is the one you should go for. In all probability, the problem they are facing with using your product or service is a larger problem they're facing in the market also. There's no alternative for them. You know, if they're complaining that vociferously, they would have probably gone and bought something from the market if it was that much of a problem for them. The reason they're not doing it is probably they haven't found something which is there in the market, which is going to. So that is going to be the source for a new innovation, which has got an immense potential in the market. Broadly, this is what the 1% rule is.
Awesome. You've given me an idea. So Manjeet wants to know, what is the best way to disrupt a market?
Wow. Best way. I will stop thinking about the market for 2 seconds. And, there's this completely self-centered person by the name of Thiel. He has come up with ideas which are very close to destroying the world also. And he has done more for the cause of putting clampers on press than anybody else, including Trump, has done in the last 10 years. But there's one statement of his, Peter Thiel has come up with in his book From Zero to One, is think about what is it that you believe the most about your market, which nobody else does, and back that thought. That is the best way you can disrupt the market to your advantage. There is something you think, and there is something which nobody else thinks about. Rather, thinks along those lines. Back yourself to the hilt when it comes to that thought. I'll give you an example. If you think, and I've come across a person who thinks that way also, if you think that schools are useless, horrible, and should be gotten rid of, that's not what everybody else thinks. But you back yourself to the hilt on that, you will be able to disrupt the market. You have a better chance of disrupting the market than anything else. It's a lot like the Shah Rukh Khan dialogue. When you believe in something badly enough, the entire kainat comes together. So it's very much like that. So make sure that it is something that you believe in, which the rest of the world probably does not carry your belief, but that's fine, as long as it's a logical belief that you have.
Awesome. So I think there was one question about encouraging innovation. I think you've answered that already. For a small organization, the ideas may be plenty, but they might not be able to execute these due to lack of time or resources. How would you suggest they deal with it?
Absolutely. So I gave 6 over here, right? I'm sure there are many others also. I mean, you look at any probably book on innovation, there might be others. So have a look at what else is there in the market. This is my biased opinion of these are the 6 easiest to implement when we are talking about innovation in the context of Indian small enterprises. Pick one, start with it. See and measure, and whatever you're doing, measure. Measure if it is giving you any returns. Just give it some time, allow it to flow for a while, give it a run for 6 months of doing this, see whether you're actually gaining from it or not. I know time is at a premium, resources are at a premium, and that is what defines small enterprises. But this is not that much of an ask. There are some over here which are pretty low on resources and are quite easy to implement also. So pick one of the 6 and run with it. I mean, I don't even want you to actually do more than 2, because that would unnecessarily place a lot of cultural and financial strain on the enterprise. So pick 1 or 2 which makes sense for you and go with it.
So, Professor Roy, can one train oneself or the organization towards innovation? Is it a learned skill, or it's basis on the risk-taking capability of the entrepreneur or the organization?
Okay, I'll broaden this discussion a little bit. There's a dear friend of mine who was a biologist by training, and then he turned his attention to doing research on entrepreneurship. So there was a meeting of these 2 grounds a few years back when the human genome was actually mapped out, and people were searching for different bits of the genome and what it does to various people. So he was part of the project, having been skilled on both sides of what people were looking for. He was part of the project which is trying to identify that bit in our DNA which defines who's an entrepreneur and who's not. So he was in the search for the entrepreneurial gene, so as to say. Similar studies have been done about innovation, and similar studies have been done about leadership. Similar studies have been done about a variety of other 2nd order and 3rd order magnitude characteristics that we often place a premium on. All of these skill sets, the considered opinion is that all of these skill sets are learned. So it is nurture and not nature. But the thing is that we have seen nurture and nature. Nurture has to start from a very early age. That makes it easier. But just because you're starting a little later does not mean that it's completely ruled out. The best time to start something is now, if you have not already started, right? So I think all of these are very easily learned skills. It is just a question of making sure that you devote adequate resources and effort to it, and next bits will fall into place.
Really awesome. So there is a request for you, because what are the 3 top books on innovation which has inspired you?
Books on innovation. No, I'll go at it a little differently. I'll talk about certain design philosophies which you need to read up about. So the first thing that I will talk about is design thinking itself. So pick up something which is around design thinking. Tom Kelly has written a bunch of books around it. Pick up whichever one you want. Do something which tells you most about design thinking, all that you would want to. There are a bunch of books around it. Whichever one you're comfortable with, go with the one which is visually the most appealing. I really don't care. It is just a philosophy that you need to know a little bit more about. Tom Kelly's books are going to be a little more wordy than you would like. There are many others who have written very nice looking books which have a lot of illustrations. I think it's better for our purposes to go for something like that. The second thing I would like you to look at is anything around TRIZ. TRIZ is an old Russian methodology of how do you come up with new ideas. A lot of recombination of ideas and a lot of cross-pollination of philosophies that you have for design is what goes into it. Pick up a basic book around TRIZ, and that is the other thing that I would end up recommending. The third thing I would very much recommend is anything which is to do with the current world of how business models are being shaped. So a base book over here, which I would like to talk about, is Business Model Generation. For those who have not actually read it, it's been out there for quite a while, and many of you have actually read it. But something to do with business model generation and how exactly business models are being adapted is the third class of books I would like to talk about. So between these, I think you'll cover the basics of what innovation is going to be all about.
So I really love that. Basically, you talked about design thinking, you talked about basic business models, and you talked about cross-fertilization across diverse fields. So you could be sitting with a mechanical engineer and there with a biomechanical guy, and you could be generating ideas together. So I just love that. So you need to, so there is, what I'm really hearing you say, there is no one fixed lens you can approach this with. You really need to let your mind be free and fertilize it with ideas which can come from any source.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a lot like some of the greatest bowlers we have had in the last few years are people like Lasith Malinga and Jasprit Bumrah, who would have never made it through a coaching program. It is the fact that they were self-taught and the fact that they found what works for them. And similarly, you need to know what all is out there, but you don't need to find out what actually works for you. Again, going back to my golf analogy, I hope I'm not saying the wrong things over here in terms of others not understanding what I'm talking about. Bubba Watson is probably the only player I get excited to see, because he was somebody who was not taught in the conventional manner. So he has a bunch of things in his arsenal which nobody else has. And what he can do with the course, nobody else can. So you have to find the path that works best for you. I mean, going down the trodden path up to an extent is fine, but after that, it has to be you. It is highly customizable to you.
Like that. Hina. You're muted, Hina.
Oh, I'm sorry. So for those people who have a lot more questions and want to take this further, the XLRI now has an NCR campus in Jhajjar, and the first batch of students have already joined. So guys, you're late. The calendar for the corporate training programs will soon be announced, and Exceed, the XLRI campus incubator and entrepreneurship development organization, has been moved from Jamshedpur to the NCR campus. Now that's amazing news for us entrepreneurs in Gurgaon. And Professor Roy will be moving to Jhajjar in September. That's very soon. You can get in touch with him at rajivroy@xlri.ac.in. So, Professor, I want to say thank you from all of us for an amazing session today. We've got a lot of ideas. I've been taking notes, and the inputs that you've given us for the books, I don't think we're going to get over this in a hurry. Thank you very much. And Rakesh?
Yes, I would like to thank everybody today evening for making this so exciting, and so many valuable insights we really got, practical tips. And for me, the most important thing which I heard today was, don't keep it all to yourself, right? Let that opportunity come from whichever way it comes, whether from your employees, your direct reports, your peers. Just be open, be confident in what you do, place those small bets, do rapid, try out rapidly. You're going to fail 8 out of 10 out of those, but those 2 which succeed is going to make you the next unicorn. So here's wishing everybody $1 billion valuation. Thank you, Professor Dr. Rajiv Roy. Absolutely enjoyed your insights. Looking forward to meet you in Jhajjar. If not that, on a golf course near Gurgaon.
Sure, certainly. Looking forward to it for sure.
And I would like to thank the team behind this, Manish for running the back end on this. Thank you very much. Jiten Thakur, thank you very much. Anish Kumar, thank you very much. If you guys can come up, we can really officially say thank you to each one of you. Running the Facebook Live. All of these are amazing members and entrepreneurs of BNI Gurgaon. They just love the entrepreneur community so much that they want to give back. And I just want to acknowledge all of that. Another amazing participation between BNI Gurgaon and XLRI. Thank you, everybody, so much for being part of this. Go ahead, have a great evening. Lots of exciting stuff, lots of things to do. Take advantage of this opportunity. Every crisis brings amazing opportunity. Don't let it go to waste. Thank you, everybody. Good evening.
Thank you,
you.
and good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much.
Thanks.